Our primary purpose is to entertain, and where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world, but the first thing we need to do is entertain.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
AMC's announcement that it was pulling the live-action Snow White from all its theaters sent shockwaves through the industry. Disney had once envisioned a major box office hit, banking on the legacy of the original tale and a high-profile cast. But AMC's decision made it clear ticket sales had dropped so severely that keeping the film on screens was no longer financially viable. Empty seats were costing them money, especially with other, more profitable titles available.
I have a clip of it.
Oh, okay, great.
Her being a retard.
Okay.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
That laugh.
That is
not going to be saved by
You
the
wrote
prince.
it?
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
The decline wasn't sudden, it had been unfolding for weeks. But few expected such a dramatic outcome. Not even Disney's vast marketing engine could rescue the film from the series of controversies that trailed it from the start. A live TV meltdown, internal cast tensions, and swirling rumors all fueled a relentless backlash. Disney's promise of a fresh take, led by rising star Rachel Zegler and seasoned actress Gal Gadot, quickly unraveled as misstep followed misstep.
So now, as the movie comes out, the two biggest stars in this movie can't stand each other to the point where they can't be in the same room.
AMC's move to cut the film's run early felt like a final nail in the coffin. Commentators scrambled to make sense of the collapse. Some blamed audience fatigue with Disney's repeated reboots of classic films. Others pointed directly to Zegler's outspoken public appearances and a PR campaign that felt increasingly forced.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
So we didn't do that this time.
Whatever the cause, the result was clear. Disappointing ticket sales and non-stop negative buzz made the film unsustainable. What began as a hopeful project had turned into a cautionary tale for Hollywood. Joe Rogan weighed in with a lengthy segment on his podcast, breaking down the fiasco in detail.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
Bitch! The
Our
right to buy
reproductive
Cosby
rights.
sweaters?
Come on.
That's the face
Go
of a
vote blue.
serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
Noted.
Thanks.
He noted that AMC's decision wasn't just about numbers. It marked a cultural shift. Audiences had finally seen that even Disney's go-to formula, nostalgia, marketing power, star talent, was no longer foolproof. The meltdown had hijacked the narrative. Rogan pointed to Zegler's unfiltered interviews, her comments on The View, and social media posts that strayed far from Disney's messaging. A promo appearance meant to boost the film ended up going viral for all the wrong reasons.
But the primary suffering is being sent in by my company to watch a children's movie as a single man, like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That was the first part that was a little bit weird, but I was basically the only person in the theater.
According to Rogan, that single moment might have been survivable, but paired with the story changes, it triggered a perfect storm of backlash. The fiasco didn't start with a bang, it began quietly. Rachel Zegler was initially seen as a bold and fitting choice for the lead. She had strong vocals, a modern edge, and seemed capable of bridging the gap between classic and contemporary. But once fans got wind of major changes to the story, missing themes, reworked character arcs, the enthusiasm began to crack. What was pitched as a bold reimagining now felt like a betrayal of the original.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely, when it got announced,
He wasn't a stalker, by the way.
thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
Fans started to wonder if Disney had pushed too far, stripping away the heart of the tale in favor of something unrecognizable. Amid the backlash, Zegler's public comments became a lightning rod. Whether intended or not, her tone in interviews came off as dismissive of the original film. Many interpreted her remarks as suggesting that the old version was outdated and irrelevant. On social media, frustration boiled over. Instead of being embraced as a fresh face for a new generation, Zegler was suddenly at the center of everything fans felt had gone wrong.
And so it was like
Those people.
very much this, yes, It was this
the people that we
awakening
need to educate, the people that we need to love into awareness.
love them in the right direction.
No, the people who you need to entertain, the people who you need to serve, the people who pay your salary.
In an attempt to regain control, Disney arranged talk show appearances, hoping to reset the narrative ahead of release. But Zegler's independent streak clashed with the studio's carefully crafted messaging. She openly posted her own views online, stating she wouldn't compromise her values for a sanitized corporate script. In another context, that might have been seen as admirable, but in this case, it only deepened the divide. Critics accused her of sounding smug and out of touch with longtime fans.
It's not your job. Your job is to entertain. You are paid to entertain.
Supporters argued she was just standing up for modern ideals, like inclusivity and representation. Still, the real story became the clash itself between a headstrong star and a billion-dollar studio, overshadowing the film's artistic intentions. Meanwhile, Disney's leadership appeared to lose control of the narrative. Bob Iger, recently back at the helm, was known for staying cool under pressure. But this time, the studio's response felt disjointed.
This movie was like you took the original Snow White and just put everything through this filter of liberalism.
Cast members gave conflicting interviews, rumors swirled, and it became clear that no one had a grip on the growing PR disaster. The meltdown on The View became a turning point. Chosen by Disney as a safe space to calm the waters, the show was supposed to help reframe the film in a positive light. But things unraveled quickly. Behind the scenes, producers were given talking points and topics to steer Zegler toward. On air, however, she veered off script, pushing political commentary and ignoring the film's prepared narrative. Attempts to guide her back were awkwardly visible.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Then came the comments that ignited a firestorm, suggesting the original story was outdated and that fans clinging to nostalgia needed to move on. For many, that was the final straw. Social media erupted with anger, and the backlash hit a new peak.
They replaced the prince with a common criminal. So there is a prince-like figure, but he's no longer a prince, he's a criminal.
Then came the true meltdown. Eyewitnesses described chaos behind the scenes, producers gesturing frantically to cut the segment or redirect the conversation, but Zegler wouldn't budge. She stood by her comments, even doubling down. The moment spiraled so quickly that The View's hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin, were visibly scrambling to keep the show afloat. Eventually, staff escorted Zegler off the set, and the broadcast abruptly cut to commercial. While the full segment never aired, partial clips and insider reports spread instantly online. Within hours, the internet was flooded with memes, criticism, and relentless mockery.
But the lead actresses, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, are making it very, very difficult for me to believe that there is anything redeeming about this project whatsoever.
Any attempt to reframe the film's image was now impossible. Every discussion would circle back to that live disaster. Joe Rogan called it a PR nightmare. Disney hadn't just lost control, it had done so live in front of millions. Though the studio scrambled to contain the fallout, the damage was irreversible. For critics of the remake, the meltdown became symbolic, not just of one actress going off script, but of a film that seemed to disrespect the very roots it was based on.
Every deviation from the original story was done for a reason. I guess what's so tedious about this movie is that every single deviation was in favor of liberalism, and a radical kind of liberalism at that.
Detractors labeled Zegler arrogant and unfit for a role that required at least some alignment with Disney's vision. Her defenders praised her honesty and refusal to conform. Either way, the spotlight stayed fixed on her, overshadowing every other part of the production. Even Gal Gadot, brought in to anchor the film with star power and credibility, faded into the background. She was meant to offer balance, a seasoned presence next to a rising star. But once the controversy erupted, she became irrelevant to the public conversation. Rumors emerged that Zegler had made private remarks criticizing Gadot's background or political leanings. Nothing was ever confirmed, but the whispers fed into the idea that the entire cast was fractured. Gadot kept her distance, issuing vague statements about her excitement for the project. Many saw it as a strategic move, staying above the drama to protect her own brand.
She was this damsel in distress. She had to be rescued by a man in order to go on and live this beautiful, happy life. Only a man could save her. The movie is problematic.
The fan backlash was swift and severe. Hashtags like #NotMySnowWhite trended across platforms. Many fans felt the new version had discarded everything they once loved. Others were outraged by what they saw as Zegler's condescension toward Disney's classic legacy. When the film finally opened, the numbers told the story. Despite a massive marketing push, it missed even the most cautious expectations. Theaters like AMC, which had allocated prime screens for a supposed blockbuster, ended up showing the film to rows of empty seats. Parents opted for other options, either put off by the controversies or simply exhausted by the endless bad press.
As an actor, you don't get to dictate anything. You don't get to dictate if a film actually happens. You don't get to dictate when it is shot, how it is shot, if you can ever speak about it to the public. You are simply just there to show up and say your lines and look the way they want you to look.
As ticket sales continued to plunge, AMC was forced to make a call. Normally, a major Disney release is guaranteed a multi-week theatrical run, ensuring steady business for both the studio and the theaters. But with negative headlines stacking up and audience turnout dwindling, AMC realized it was losing money. The film wasn't just underperforming, it had become radioactive. Even its blockbuster budget and glossy visuals couldn't lure moviegoers tired of the drama. In a move that many in the industry called unprecedented, AMC pulled Snow White from all its locations. The timing varied slightly across regions, but soon after, AMC confirmed the decision publicly.
Do you really want to have an actor that gets involved with your movie that constantly brings up politics and then does it even inside of the advertising and the marketing of the career?
When asked, AMC reps said the film's numbers simply didn't justify keeping it in rotation. Behind the scenes, local theater managers had reportedly been voicing concerns for days. Some said customers ignored the film's poster entirely, while others openly dismissed it after hearing about the meltdown. At that point, continuing to screen it wasn't just unprofitable, it was embarrassing.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
But you don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
Whether Disney was quietly on board with the decision remains unclear, but some speculated the studio preferred to let it fade rather than prolong the backlash. Sometimes, walking away is the cleaner option. Joe Rogan called the move a watershed moment. To him, this wasn't just about theater scheduling, it was a crack in the long-standing alliance between Disney and top exhibitors. He emphasized that no film, no matter how expensive or high profile, is safe when public opinion turns toxic.
So now, as the movie comes out, the two biggest stars in this movie can't stand each other to the point where they can't be in the same room.
And for Rogan, the moment that sealed the film's fate was clear: the meltdown on The View. Up until then, there was at least a chance the movie might attract casual viewers or families unconcerned with internet drama. But once clips of that disastrous appearance spread, public apathy turned to outright rejection. The chaos had broken through, and there was no going back.
In addition to that, there was already an uproar about her being cast as Snow White because she is not Caucasian, she is a Latina, she is half Colombian, and so people were like, why were you cast in the first place? We just had a black Little Mermaid, now we're having a Latina Snow White, and she is literally called Snow White. This doesn't make sense.
It also exposed how fragile these glossy promotional tours can be. Studios usually control the message down to the last soundbite, but live interviews like The View are wild cards. When Zegler veered off script, there was little producers could do. Attempts to redirect her failed, and the resulting spectacle became a media storm no PR team could contain. Ironically, Disney's efforts to silence the fallout only made things worse, reinforcing the idea that it was more concerned with optics than honesty. For many fans, that was the moment they tuned in, not to support the film, but to watch the implosion unfold in real time.
We are now at a 1 out of 10 on IMDb for the new Snow White. And it couldn't happen to a better person. What is the lesson to be learned here with this Snow White disaster?
Yeah, we had more dwarfs than we did viewers in most of these theaters. And as you know, there were no dwarfs other than some CGI weird generated version of them.
Meanwhile, Bob Iger's return to Disney couldn't have come at a worse time. He inherited a slate of live-action remakes, a strategy that had worked well in the past. For years, Disney relied on its brand power. Slap the name on a known title, and families would show up. But Snow White shattered that illusion. The backlash showed that even the most beloved source material couldn't survive If public sentiment turned sour, critics seized on the fiasco as proof that Disney had become complacent, modernizing classics without honoring what made them resonate in the first place.
I really hope that I have a similar heart to hers. She has this beautiful, unending kindness and positive outlook towards the world and the world around us. I wish I could be as positive as she is at times. That's certainly a difference we have, but I think it's a very human thing to not always see the bright side. But that is part of the beauty of Snow White. It has been for 88 years now that she just sees the good in everyone and everything. And I hope that I and so many people who watch this film can embody that as well.
The situation also revealed cracks in Disney's usually polished PR machine. Normally, there's tight coordination between executives, marketing, and talent. This time, the messaging unraveled. Instead of a united front, the public saw confusion and internal conflict. Making things worse, even people within Disney's wider orbit began criticizing Rachel Zegler. One viral anecdote involved the son of a Disney-affiliated producer posting online that Zegler's outspokenness had hurt the film. Whether that was intentional or not, it added to the chaos. What should have stayed behind closed doors spilled into public view, reinforcing the image of a fractured production. Zegler, unsurprisingly, took offense, feeling she was being unfairly blamed. Her defenders argued that the film's problems ran much deeper than anything she had said in an interview. By then, AMC had already made its call. Snow White was out. The decision carried massive symbolic weight. Disney remakes typically stay in theaters for several weeks, but this one vanished in a matter of days. The message was clear. Not even Disney is immune to total failure. The meltdown had been so damaging, so public, that audiences simply tuned out. Industry watchers began to wonder if more theaters might quietly follow AMC's lead.
A few lessons for Disney. Number one, stop cannibalizing all your old IP. Like, it's really bad. It's really bad business. Number two, please stop changing all of the historic plots, which actually have meaning to generations of people, to instead become generic woke story about how woman leads revolutionary uprising and she don't need no man.
Some smaller chains had already done so without much fanfare, but AMC's move made it official. The largest theater chain in the country was done with Snow White. Joe Rogan noted that in a different era, Disney might have quietly absorbed the flop. Home video sales or international markets would have helped cushion the blow. But in today's world of non-stop social media and 24-hour coverage, the meltdown became the only thing people talked about. Even casual viewers who don't normally follow Hollywood gossip knew something had gone wrong. Instead of associating Snow White with fairy tale charm, they linked it to corporate missteps and a cringeworthy live TV moment. For many, that meltdown was the final nail. After it aired, even those willing to defend the film gave up. The fiasco also reignited the conversation around box office poison, a phrase that suddenly began to hover over Rachel Zegler's name. Some argued it was unfair to pin the collapse entirely on her. The remake, they said, strayed too far from what fans cherished.
I mean, he's totally right. Now, of course, as we covered, the movie is terrible anyway in its own right. It was probably going to underperform regardless. People are tired of the soulless cash grab remake thing.
Others blamed the scattershot marketing that failed to communicate a clear vision. Still, the meltdown on The View became inseparable from the film's downfall. Zegler had been front and center in posters, trailers, and interviews. But when it mattered most, her remarks alienated the very people Disney was trying to win over. Rogan speculated that Disney might tighten its rules moving forward. Stricter press guidelines, clauses limiting what stars can say, a new push to preserve the brand. But he also warned of overcorrection. Robotic interviews and soulless PR speak could backfire just as easily. What the Snow White meltdown made clear was that sincerity matters. Zegler was certainly sincere, but it wasn't the kind of sincerity the audience wanted. In the days that followed, attention shifted to Disney's next move. Many expected the film to hit streaming platforms much sooner than planned. Theaters were backing away, so Disney had little choice. But doing so carried its own risk. It would all but confirm the film's failure. Rogan predicted the fallout would linger. For Zegler, future roles might come with baggage, questions about whether she'd spark more controversy. For Disney, the challenge would be how to modernize classics without gutting their soul. The meltdown exposed just how fragile that balance really is.
And now she's trying to reinvent herself because there's been so much blowback. And you can only imagine the studio calls about this woman behind the scene. Like, oh my God, we're $242 million in, and our lead actress hates our film, our actors, our storyline.
Rogan also pointed out how the meltdown became instant comedy gold. Late-night hosts cracked jokes, and social media flooded with memes. Images of empty AMC theaters, captions like "the day Snow White died," and endless satire. Disney, usually bulletproof, took a visible hit. The meltdown had become a symbol of public frustration, not just with this one film, but with the broader sense of corporate overreach. Audiences are open to reimaginings, but only when they feel authentic. When an update seems like a cash grab that disrespects the original, backlash comes fast and hits hard. Pair that with a star's on-air meltdown, and even the most polished PR campaign is powerless. AMC's official announcement, the decision to drop Snow White entirely, was the moment it all crystallized. It wasn't just about one chaotic interview anymore. That statement cemented the meltdown as a defining cultural moment. This film would not be remembered for its visuals or message, but for the disaster that engulfed it. The collapse of Disney's theatrical partnership with the country's biggest cinema chain marked the end, not just of the movie's run, but of any remaining goodwill. And it left a message hanging in the air for every studio watching. Manage your stars, guard your message, and never forget what made your classics matter in the first place. Because if another meltdown like this happens, the public won't just tune out. They'll take the whole production down with it.